And hello, all you folks out there in YouTube land. Lord the Crocus Squirrels here with an Opal Dragon.
Yeah, with plenty of 20-foot poles to touch this topic with.
I think I think you're about uh, 20 or so meters short on those poles. Thought I asked for the 30 meter edition.
Yeah. And the only problem is, the longer they get, the more unwieldy those poles get. But that's why you
Yeah,
get multiples of them.
yeah, I know. Gaia.com is absolutely crazy. Hell, Netflix for Crazy People does not even begin to cover it there, crypto. Welcome to the stream, folks. We're going to have a little chat today. Because apparently BAFTA and ResetEra don't actually get it. What goes into game design and what you can and can't do and still make a game that fucking works. I'm especially in the case of BAFTA, they've been particularly retarded. We're going to zip through that actually fairly quickly because we've got a lot to cover on this, on what ResetEra has come up with. Because holy shit, there's some terrible in there. Unfortunately for them, I actually have some experience in game development. I've done some of this. I've actually I wrote manual for a AA game made by Stardock some time ago, as well as having put together a bunch of little visual novels for myself, with and without a team. So hooray for that shit too. I have actually worked on RPGs, mostly on my own time and for my own amusement, including one that was partially released called Insanity Alley. I never finished to it. If you go hunting around for it, you can actually see what kind of progress I made before I put it away. Um, but if I'm going to do that, I should probably do it something other than RPG Maker VX Ace. Um, MV, I think I have the stuff that I can't do myself, so we're gonna not go there. Anyway, I have a fairly good idea of what it takes to make a game, and they don't,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. Uh, there are bits and pieces of game development they really just don't fucking understand. Anyway, that's not. It's hard. He's really hard. Okay, so how about we start? How about we start with the attitude of BAFTA? And for this, I need to
Sure.
add. For this, I actually need to add this one in as a source because I didn't. This is the one thing I didn't get sorted. Window capture. I want that thing. Come here. Give me that thing. God damn it. Okay. So, here just recently. Get back over there. You don't get to stay there. I want this over here. And then I'm just going to increase the size. You people may have noticed that I changed the donation goal. No matter what I do, I'm going to need between 175 and 225 to secure another capture card. I'm looking at something that will probably be internal. Not that that will help me a lot, but it will certainly help me some. But that's actually what I'm looking at right now. Um, I'm going to try and get that and make it work, but we're gonna see what happens. No, I do not want that up there. Here we go. All right. So BAFTA has delivered its standards, and you must meet X number of standards for you must meet X number of criteria for each standard. And this is really terrible. Um, to be considered at all for a BAFTA award, your game must fall into X number of categories. Or all four, you have to meet all four standards by either two or by meeting at least two or three of whatever they've got handy. Each one is labeled. And here's the first one. To achieve standard A, you will need to meet three of the criteria below. Lead characters and playable characters. At least one of the lead characters is from an underrepresented group. They don't actually define what that is. For non-narrative games where you have an ensemble cast, a total what?
I said they don't do that because they don't want to tip you off to their racism.
Okay, entertain them for a couple of moments here, Mr. Opal. I need to do a thing, real quick. Like I'll be back in 2 shakes.
I'm like, okay.
Read the screen.
I'll make my comments on it. Yeah, I'll make my comments on this because like just general comments because like I'm reading through this and I'm swore that they this is very similar to something they did with the movie industry. Like I'm looking through this for the 4th time, and it just kept triggering deja vu, and I'm just like, a lot of the So don't be surprised if this sounds like the standards they set up for the various award systems that they had for the movie and TV entertainment industry. It's like, oh, jeez, man. And as I said, Squirrel's right. They're very. It's interesting how very vague they make themselves because they really don't want to tip their racism in here. But man, when you look at this, you can just see how bloody racist it is. I mean, this is the pinnacle of racism. Oh, jeez. Like, ooh. Yeah, but now I'm out of gas here. I can't think of what else to say. But, jeez, wow. I mean, the biggest question I have is like, why? After we go through this, if you come up with an answer, please tell me. But why the hell should we care about this award system? Like, honestly, like, if anybody's looked through it, well, actually, no, still wait until the end. Maybe you'll come up with a revelation that I just can't see here because, I'm just a white dragon, What does a bloody white dragon know? Well, actually, I'm an iridescent dragon, but we won't get into that, being opal light.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, the opalescent part, the iridescent part, isn't going to matter to them. So, for them, it's a difference. It's a difference without a distinction without a difference. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. All it is, as long as I look white enough to be considered white.
Right. Well, Tim Pool, funnily enough, has the same problem. All right. So lead characters from an underrepresented group. If you have a big cast, it has to be half and half gender balance. 20% belonging to an underrepresented ethnic group. A tenth has to be LGBTQ plus. 7 DDEF, and DDEF actually has a definition. There are two effective versions of deaf here. One is in which you can hear sounds, but you can't necessarily make them out, and you might actually have a language, a spoken language. And there's a deaf that is completely deaf. You can't hear deck and probably never have, etc., etc., etc. And D/Def refers to both at the same time. Uh,
Oh, jeez.
Now, for A2, A2 is effectively identical to A1, except that it refers to other characters that are, it refers to your NPCs and such.
Squirrel, one question. One little question. Okay, lead characters. Like, how many lead characters does any game have? Like, I mean, I think the most I've ever had where they had three running simultaneous stories that intertwined was three.
Yeah,
How
that
the
would.
heck are you get
There
7%
you're
of
talking
them to
about
be?
Grand Theft Auto 5, and that was three dudes. So there's no way they could. There's no way you could achieve any form of gender parity unless two of them were women. The other side, the flip side of that is that generally speaking, well, if you're talking about visual novels and RPGs that are centered kind of around that sort of an attitude, especially the ones that are, especially the ecchi ones and the dating ones, which are oftentimes the same thing, you're talking about a guy and up to 5 or 10 heroines. That could be that could be a thought. But generally speaking, you have one lead or one possible replacement lead that this works for. Um, and achieving any kind of real diversity doing that is kind of thin. Um, yeah, I don't know how you get 7% out of three characters. It's really not possible. You actually, in fact, an ensemble cast of five means that you have to have that means that you must have the token black dude on that dude or dudette
Ah,
who will
did you
probably
just say that? Did you just indicate that they're pro tokenism?
that indicate what.
That they're pro tokenism?
Well, isn't it obvious from the way they laid it out? Because they're looking for overrepresentation based on actual population size. So yeah, tokens, um, locations, in an underrepresented region or community. I have no idea what that would even mean. I have no idea what that would actually mean. Are you talking about the backwoods of fucking Montana? We have representation for that. It's called. It was one of the Far Cry side games. Okay.
So I got a question now. Sorry, I can't resist. But so if we do a game with the story completely in the Bronx in a nearly 99.99% black neighborhood, do we have to turn some of them white?
One would think, because that would, in terms of actually no. In terms of underrepresentation, they don't count. They don't seem to count white people. Even though the middle of the,
Oh, right.
even though setting a game in Harlem, not the Bronx, Harlem would, by definition, include very few white people. White people are underrepresented, badly underrepresented in Harlem. Okay, let's try Poland in the 12th century. There are some serious you will have some seriously underrepresented types of people. The problem, of course, is those people the underrepresented types generally wouldn't exist. You're not gonna find a Spaniard in Poland in the middle of the winter in 1205. It's not gonna happen. Well, you don't have any African American. Dude, it's 1205 Poland. There is no America. Okay. And
Yeah.
yes, I was poking at The Witcher. Robber Baron. Okay. Let's see. Creative leadership and development team. You have to have. Let's see. We got 50-50 gender balance in the department heads. Wait. I thought gender was a spectrum. Did the BAFTAs just admit
Yeah.
that there are only two genders?
You're right. You're right. They did.
They did it before. They did it up above too. Department heads.
Yeah.
Well, okay. 10% target for those identifying as LGBTQ plus, and 7% for those identifying as deaf, and disabled. I like the fact that they put "and disabled" in there, because that means the guy with one of his eyes gouged out might actually get a fucking job. Or somebody missing a hand, for example. Little shit like that. Or somebody, or some crazy person weighing over 500 pounds. Yeah, no. Wailing in Assassin's Creed and PETA yelling about it. The fuck? Whaling was absolutely the standard because usually what you were using to light and heat your homes was not kerosene, it was whale oil. Fuckers. That's what they made most candles. They made a lot of candles out of that shit too. All right. We also consider key roles in the following teams: business development, events, HR, legal, marketing, operations, PR, publishing, QA, recruitment, social media. If you took, actually, believe it or not, if you took PR, marketing, and social media and tossed in a sprinkling of HR, half your people are already going to be, quote, diverse, unquote. That's where they like to settle. Again, the 50-50 gender balance. Dev team. And you only have to have 2 of these, by the way. You only need 2 of these from B. So let's go. Workplace practices. Fosters a healthy and supportive working culture. Not includes but not limited to equality and discrimination policies, especially when hiring. Yeah, no. That's actually bad. You should be doing that strictly on merit. Disciplinary and grievance procedures. Well, okay, fine, except that if you are believing the black lesbian lady in the wheelchair with rickets as being more truthful than the white guy that can stand on his own, you have a problem. HR and mediation channels. Most of your HR people are fucking what the hell ever. The bullying and harassment guidelines. We don't talk about those. That shit was just rude. Adoption of Yuki's Raise the Game pledge. We have no idea what that is. I've never actually heard of it before right now. And something tells me it's going to be packed so full of social justice I won't know what the fuck hit me. Okay. Standard C, 2 criteria. Paid employment opportunities. Studio offering paid employment opportunities. Apprenticeships, internships, etc., for 2 people from underrepresented groups. They should be doing this based on merit, and they should be able to make whatever. And presuming that a sufficient number of people apply to seriously overfill every job, then you'll probably get that naturally just on merit. Training opportunities, skills development, including one-off, bespoke, and student work experience opportunities. Let's see. Training opportunities, including work experience to people for underrepresented groups. Here's the thing. Once again, if you get enough people applying, you're not going to have that problem. So if you've got, I don't know, you've got 50 jobs, and in one department, say, let's go for QA, just because QA is cheap and easy. You've got, I don't know, you've got 200, or let's say you've got 1,000 people that apply for the job that are more or less going to match up with the way it's reflected in the way things are reflected. As far as actual population, 13% black, 10 or 5 or 10% Asian, and something less than 2% for pretty much anything else. Okay, and that's United States numbers. That could be different depending on where. It could be different. The numbers could be different depending on where you are.
Yeah. Can I make a quick comment? I was going to say, just to add into this, is that if you want more black people or more Hispanic people in these jobs, You got to make the population desire to pursue these careers. If the hiring pool is not there, if the people aren't there, they can't hire them.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The problem, of course, is that half of these people would have to be women to generate roughly the number of people that are actually going to get these jobs. Because right now you're looking at 10 to 1 or 20 to 1. Okay, 1,000 versus. Okay, let's go with the 10 to 1 number because it makes the math easier. Okay, let's say for a moment that you have 100 positions and 1,000 applicants that are generally spread out across the population as it exists. Um, this is idealism in the extreme. Generally speaking, you're not going to find nearly as many women that want to work in game dev as you are men. Men are out there to make their bone. Women are out there to try and trying to keep themselves alive. Men tend to be much more ambitious. Okay, but if you have this ideal mix of people that are applying, then you should come out with something, and you're working strictly off merit. You should be able to come up with something that roughly looks like your initial hiring pool. So even if you've got 10, even if you split them out 10 people for each position, you're going to wind up with about about 7. You're going to wind up with about 70 white people, 35 of which would be female, and on down the line. So we get to do that kind of math. I'm not going to waste a whole lot more time on it because we're actually going to be really short on it. Okay, offering us internships or apprenticeships. You shouldn't have to go for the underrepresented group. That's some that's some Thomas thinking. If anybody remembers, I forget his last name. But for anybody that remembers the drubbing that Sargon gave Thomas what was it?
I can't remember. It was one of those.
It's been a few years ago. It might have been
Yeah.
it was at some conference or another many moons ago. I think it might have actually been the annual YouTube conference, and I forget what the name of that even is. But if you guys remember that, Thomas's suggestion as to how to avoid being discriminatory is to go for the person from the underrepresented group, which in all when considering everything else being completely equal. Yes, we know the joke about the 4-year-old wanting the bonbons. They honestly, at this point, the United States and Canada and a couple of other places around the world, they've been turned into. We should get them all together, put up a big fence, and call it Toddler Land. And yes, I include both Kazakhstan and the United Kingdom, or United Cuckdom is what it's trying to turn into. For this instance,
We need to pull England. We need to pull England over here too, because
that's what do you think? What was I just talking about?
yeah.
And really, we're most of the rest of this is roughly the same shit that actually happens anyway. Only they want you to do the underrepresented people rather than the quote unquote majority. Now let's go down to D. Accessibility options, D1. Yeah, okay, I'm game. I would be completely okay with that. I actually appreciate it when they put in colorblind modes. I'm not myself colorblind, but sometimes there are games that you can But a number of games that you can work with can have colorblind modes, and it works. Um, Subtitles, that's actually common. Audio description may be a little bit that could be a tad messy. You'd have to find a way to put a button in there. But it's not. I don't believe it to be impossible, although it would be a shitload of work. Text scaling, that's not something that happens in console games, but in PC games, I've actually seen games that do that. Voice video chat functionality, not a thing that works for single player games, and most multiplayer games already have that. Um,
But squirrel, somebody might need to sign language while playing.
yeah, whatever. All right, controller options, cool, kick ass, including remapping. Every time I see a game that doesn't have remapping ability, people get pissed. There are always
Yeah,
people in there demanding remapping, being able to remap their controller or keyboard. So I don't see where any of this is actually a problem, with the exception of the one thing.
no,
Not all of it is done, but most games hit at least some of these high points. And by the way, voice and video chat, that could be problematic in and of itself. If I remember correctly, people are screaming about multiplayer games and toxic voice chat. Underserved players.
yeah,
The target player basis of a game is an underserved group. Well, okay. If you want to if that matches with what you're already doing, then go for it. If not, then that's something I wouldn't bother with.
yeah.
You can
No, that should not be required.
I mean, you're talking about a Madden game where we're not going. We're not. If you're talking about a Madden game, which is really what a lot of the underserved groups like to do, or other similar things, you're not going to get anywhere turning every character in Persona 5 black. It ain't going to work. Uh, uh, Game is designed to encourage healthy engagement with the title and its systems alongside healthy engagement with other players and community members. Yeah, this is how to make a AAA game. This document is how to make a AAA game as bad as possible. As bad as humanly possible. So how about BAFTA, you hang this one up for the indefinite future, and maybe, just maybe, we'll start getting good games again. Now, we have taken entirely longer on this than I wanted to, but it was actually something resembling worth it. We actually can remove that safely now. So how about the main act, Opal?
Sure, let's go for it. I'm shutting this piece of crap down.
All right. So, image number
Loading
one.
up the other crap.
This is we're going into what ResetEra seems to think would be really neat in terms of improving the Persona series as a whole. Most of these are references to things that occurred in Persona 5, because apparently they seem to think that there was not Persona 1, 2A, 2B, 3, and 4. Although they do acknowledge that 4 exists at some point. Most of it is actually centered around 3, 4, and 5. So, here's our list. Here's our list. Let's talk, Opal, and let's get Grumpy Cat off of there, because
Sure.
fuck Grumpy Cat. We're going to turn that off too. That's probably just going to annoy everybody. And I'll just grab this and move it over here. Sorry about it being slow, but XSplit seems to want to do that today. I don't know why. It's like it's begging to crash, or for the right to crash. All right. 1A. An option to choose between a male and female or female character as the main protagonist. We have a problem with this. I have several problems with this on just about every level. P5R is 38.86 gigabytes installed. If you were going to do that for Persona 5, you would have to it's almost like making a completely different game and then adding it to the game that you already have. You're looking at that point something closer to an 80 gigabyte install rather than 40. If you can do it that cheaply, that's very nearly twice the work. And it might actually be more in some cases, especially when you include things like voice acting and other sort of noise. Yeah,
Well, you're
that's a,
generous.
I would not actually be surprised at that, Crypto. There's some evidence that at least some of them played a little bit more than that. Persona 3, and speaking of Persona 3 Portable, Persona 3 Portable did in fact add a female protagonist. Her story is completely separate, and whilst it covers the same generalized meta plot points, almost everything else had to be altered.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like
the result of
I
the result of
oh,
that is
I
that large chunks of the original game had to be removed, all the animation, your ability to run around town and pick things, as opposed to just being a flying fucking dot. Wow, that annoyed the shit out of me. By the way, um, there's a lot you can't do at that point. Um, about the only way you could have made it worse was to is just to use the left and right buttons on the D-pad to select it to select between, and you almost had that anyway. Um, the amount of a large part of the script had to be changed. There were some screw ups doing it, if anybody remembers. We're getting ahead of ourselves now, Crypto, and I can just imagine what the cost of that was. I don't know what the total budget was for P5R, but it sold like gangbusters. It got an updated version within a couple of years. Um, what is it? 17 to 19 within 2 years, as opposed to the Golden, which took quite a bit longer. What was it? 4 years, something like that. Um, we had some, and that was some, and the amount of money that would be required to be expended up front is pretty extreme. You're going to at least double it, at least double the budget for production, and then you have marketing and all the other crap that you have to pay for too on top of it. I do like the option of male or female sometimes, and I thought that the Persona 3 female MC was actually she was really cute. I liked her. I would just have liked that game to be more like FES, and
ooh,
in terms of what was actually possible. You wouldn't have fit that on a DVD though. You wouldn't have, not with all the stuff intact, including um, including the extra bit from FES referred to as the answer. All right, across from it, don't shy away from actually tackling the themes you bring up. Since when has Persona not done that? 90% of the time, they do actually resolve the themes. They resolve the themes in question. At least the major ones. I have no idea what they're talking about here. I don't. Other than people demanding that Kanji be gay, when in fact his actual problem is single target sexuality.
but Squirrel, these devs should just know who the people want to hook up with, and they should just make every possible option available.
which again is a severe problem in terms of I don't know money, time, personnel, and the amount of crunch that would be required to even make that fucking happen inside of 15 years. Consider an adult cast in a workplace or college setting. That is actually something you would have to design. You would have to start out with as a base design, and it would completely go against everything the Persona series is. Part of the problem, part of their issue, is that they have to deal with school, with compulsory education. They have to deal with parents or parent-like figures, all of that crap. Um, they didn't have that much of a problem with this in Persona 3 because everybody's parents were way in the fucking background. Um, and everybody that they were living with actually was in on the gig, so that wasn't so much a problem. In Persona 4, we have Detective Tajima, who turned out to be a real pain in the ass towards the end of the game. Pardon me. And then we have Sojiro Sakura from Persona 5, who whilst he doesn't appear to give a shit, is actually a roadblock does perform roadblock functions. Yes, and Japan's college and workplace situation is you don't have time for shit. If you are a salaryman in Japan, the chances of you having any free time, seriously, is limited at best. College settings, if you are not on top of your studies in college, you're fucked. You're gonna get booted. You don't have time to go running around in Mementos if you're gonna do that, or Tartarus, or being really super tired, going into the following day, or worse, sick because you keep doing silly shit. Expand the soundtrack in the game beyond selling outfits with background music. Yeah, no, we're not gonna do that. Music is expensive. Again, a really good soundtrack. We're talking Final Fantasy tier soundtracks can cost as much or more than the animation budget. Believe me, I've seen this happen. Let's see.
Some artists aren't some of those artists really demanding? Like they put a lot of restrictions on these game devs on what they can do with to the point where like you worry about copyright strikes or content ID when you stream a lot of games. That's why you kill the music.
Yeah, because those music people are fucking assholes. I'm serious. Customization such as hair, outfits, etc. for the protagonist. There is some of that in both Persona 3 and 4, or excuse me, 4 and 5, but it's restricted to dungeon use. The rest of it, don't even. And I can say that because we're talking specifically about Persona. We're not talking about video games in general. Because you're looking at, again, additional animation budget, additional this, additional that, pain in the ass to get it right, and if you don't get enough of them, people are going to start bitching. Because these things are actually centered around characters that exist within the game, not just some sort of rude little tabula rasa that you can just do things with. Because that's the way the storytelling works.
Oh, Crypto pointed out something interesting. I'm trying to find it now. Yeah, I didn't even notice that either. Oh shit.
Yes.
The third one.
Yes, I saw it.
Customization.
Wow. They say customization options, and it should be customization. I gave what they intended, not what they actually wrote, because I think those people are idiots. Yes, that's right, ResetEra. I'm talking to you. Frickin' rat bastards. Okay, moving on. Better pacing for both the main story and dungeons. I don't have the foggiest idea what you expect. You can't. The pacing is what it is, and if you just go for it, the pacing is actually fine. the pacing in the Persona games is actually one of the best parts, in my opinion. Let's see. Do not block share function on PS4, and no spoilers is not a good excuse. Fuck you. If they don't want you to be able to share certain bits on screen, it's probably because the copyrights are cloudy, and they don't want you doing that. So, and besides which, if you're streaming games, why the hell are you using the share function? The share function on PS4, it's crap. Let's see. More diverse range of personas. Well, good luck with that, because the personas are not based on real life people. They are not people in and of themselves. They're not actually even technically alive. What you're dealing with is gods and myths and other such things coming from history as functions of the personality of the character whose persona it is. Okay.
Internal reflections. Like if you're looking at number 4 there, because when you met your shadow, it was a reflection of your true self from a darker angle. That's why they always seem so horrible, because they sat there and spout the truth about yourself, and the character didn't want to accept it initially. And then when you defeated your personal shadow, you came to the realization that, yeah, this is the shit person I am. I've got to quit denying it.
Well, that was true of Persona 4, but what I recommend for whichever squirrels that were making uh, this particular quote unquote suggestion, is to read a little bit of Jung and understand what shadows actually are in this context. Okay, make personas more interesting as demon/characters. See above. That question has already been asked and answered. Read some fucking Jung. Read Carl Jung.
Yeah.
Understand what Carl Jung was trying for. He has been poo-pooed greatly, but when they put together the Persona series, they actually, from Persona 1 forward, and actually SMTF had shades of Jung as well. They were working directly from Jungian philosophy, and if you have not looked into it or don't want to wrap your head around it, then you're going to have issues. If you want a thumbnail of Jung, get your ass a copy of Persona 4 Golden and go to Edogawa's classroom. It is all there. Everything you need to know to make these personas make fucking sense. Do your fucking homework.
Squirrel, how dare you? How dare you expect them to do any level of education? That's your job. You need to get educated.
Excuse me, I've already been educated. I looked at Edogawa's classroom and then went on to read a bunch of Jung. I know what he was talking about. I know what Jung was on about.
No, you don't understand their real life experiences. You just see how bigoted you are. How dare you expect them to get educated? They just know what is true. With all
due disrespect to everybody involved in that, I don't have time for that shit. You aren't going to talk to me about everything that's ever happened to you. So, and even if you did, everything you're talking about is completely subjective. So, no, until you have a single standard that I can pick up a book and read, we're not having that conversation. Because I don't have time. I cannot, in my lifetime, or anyone else's, or everyone else's, interview every person on the face of the planet for their personal experiences, so that I can be sufficiently sensitive for your dead ass. It's not worth it. All right. Now here's one we've got here, and I'm kind of iffy on this one. Give the last party member more breathing room and time to develop after introducing them. This is actually aimed at Haru. and I would have loved some more time with Haru. I really would have. We do get shades of who Haru is, and the kind of creature that she grew up to be, um, and the way she got there. But we'd like to see a little bit more of what Haru is after she completely rebels. We'd love that. Okay, this could also apply to Naoto, and Aegis. Aegis really is a blank slate. She's single focused in the beginning, and then she has to try and grow into that. Um, and she doesn't get to until Persona 3 FES. Naoto appears in the game very early, and then kind of over time we get to see a little bit more of her. Um, her dungeon is at the secret base is actually probably the best part of that. And then we kind of get then over the course of her social link we get a fuller explanation of what the hell she's about and how she works. We get more scenes with her for when you get into the back part of Persona 4 Golden. And honestly, we're pretty much okay with that. Naoto does actually get her day in the sun. Haru only gets about a half a day, and that's really not cool. Because I happen to like Haru. She was really neat. But beyond that, yeah. Yeah, they're actually specifically after the way Haru was treated there, and we do get some more time to hang out with her once the game in Persona 5 Royal. Be aware this list was written before Persona 5 Royal came out.
Okay.
Add optional characters and social links to the game in New Game Plus. No. Absolutely not, and for exactly the same reason we do not just want to start throwing in an extra protagonist. First off, you have to obtain all of the you have to max out all of the social links for a trophy and for the best ending to begin with. So so extra social links and shit after that tend to turn into a huge problem. Not to mention the nightmare scheduling would turn out to be, because you've got barely enough time to do anything your first playthrough. Your free days are very few and far between. I think there's I think the version of the walkthrough I got, or the walkthrough I used to go through Royal the first time, actually did have a significant amount of free time so that you could catch up on things. But only when we got into late November and early December. Did they not have the Empress Arcana? Haru was the Empress in Persona 5. But you sir, would know that better than I. Let's see, what else is good? Better treatment of LGBTQ characters. Don't make offensive jokes about LGBTQ community. You're missing a word there, folks. Again, I will refer you back to. I'm actually going to refer you back to the bit about adult casts. And making personas more interesting as characters. Honestly, the amount of offense that you take is, generally speaking, not commensurate with the level of the joke. Because I know gay guys from all over the fucking place. And if at any time we happen to be in the same location, we're gonna hang out. um, almost universally, um, these people found the two flaming queers. Okay, that's probably not. Fuck it. It's too late to do anything about that phrasing. The two flaming gay guys that were in Shinjuku and on the beach for Persona 5, they found those two fuckers hilarious. Especially when ragging on Ryuji, who is everything, who generally speaking makes the gator drop off. It just shuts it down. Um, Mind you, they liked the version of the joke from Persona 5 much better than they did the edited version for P5R. They didn't like those. Uh, so yeah, go figure. Um, what you talking about, Willis, with the whole offensive jokes thing? We don't know what that means. And you should probably go to work on that. Yeah, that was the other one. Yeah. Yes, they're referring to the two guys from Shinjuku. Um, but yeah, when they went to the beach, Yusuke perked up like a meerkat and then fucked off. He just headed for the frick. He headed back up the beach and out to the highway to go fucking home at that point, which is probably what I would have done. Yeah, the dumb, horny, straight white male sidekick in the game. Let's see. That's actually it turns out not to be Ryuji. He doesn't seem to have that kind of a thing going on. Although again, he's probably
a little.
Chariot tends to work well. Okay, skipping the bit about the maid service. Because he wanted to know he really pretty much, I think he just wanted to know what the hell that was about and what he'd get away with. More believable and mature villains with relatable motivations. Can we have some examples here? I'd like some examples. Because I know you're referring almost strictly to Persona 5. Because Adachi was a fucking toddler. They got good grades in high school. Ikutsuki, he was just nuts. But Kamoshida was incredibly well developed as far as that goes, and made a villain out of what was actually topical. What was going on is topical. Madarame was actually similar, although none of the others except Shido really got as much screen time. they all had their sin, and really they were all based on the 7 deadly sins.
Mm.
And you got them all.
Huh. Sweet.
Crypto, I am firmly of the opinion that Ryuji and On are, in essence, the same as Yosuke and Chie. There's not really a difference. Let's see. What else we got? More unique ways to gain personas? Okay, whatever. In fact, they've actually changed it up quite a lot from Persona 3, 4, and the step forward to 5. We brought back the negotiations from the SMT franchise, or from Shin Megami Tensei anyway. The whole cards thing, I was never a big fan of the cards thing, but it did actually make it pretty easy. Especially the way they changed shuffle time for Persona 4.
I have a comment about the more unique ways to game personas. As I said to you before, this is I've screwed up, and I don't want to do the work to do things to go back and do things proper to get things the way they were supposed to be getting. Give me give me an easy way out. Gimme.
Yep.
I don't want to work for it.
And yes, Crypto, some of the villains that we got for Persona 5 were very much based off of people who did terrible things. Okay? But you're trying to see these people and as relatable people. And frankly, people that are of this particular variety tend not to be very relatable to anybody but themselves. A better localization overall. Well, you talk to Atlas USA. They're the ones that screwed it up. No more awkwardly structured sentences and weird use of honorifics in the dub. See, here's the problem. You have to know how and under what circumstances an honorific should be offered or used. And awkwardly structured sentences are a way to make me cringe and provide laughs for
Yeah.
all when I do it. Okay. This next one here is one I kind of. So that's actually just part of the entertainment. It's always been that way. I don't expect them to stop now. But there are also some things in Japanese that don't quite translate into something that looks entirely like English, or even makes
No,
good English. Tone down the excessive hand holding and forced to sleep days. I kind of like this thought, but
that
again,
one I do like.
most of it is actually based on scheduling. So, let's
Yeah.
see.
Well, what they could do is they could put something in where you can kind of get a little extra time if you want. But other than the excessive hand holding, at least make some way to make some of those things optional.
Or at least get Morgana to shut up. I mean,
Yeah,
seriously, that
like
cat
like
talks way too hard,
yeah.
and he doesn't learn when we button mash. The fuck. Okay, so
No, I love that.
give the player some breathing room during the final stages of the game. P5 had too many back-to-back dungeons. Well, you do actually have some safe areas, so make use of that.
Yeah,
Um,
and he
because
told me that
everything else had to
that
happen on the 24th of December. So,
yeah.
what do you expect us to do? All right.
Didn't you tell me that the super easy mode, lets you get out of things so that you can continue where you are if you need,
Yeah, no,
or, or something
you
like?
can, and yes, in safe mode you can just get up you can get killed in combat, get up, and start beating on things again.
So basically, so basically, so basically, they're asking for something that's already in the game.
No, not really here. They're actually talking about giving them a couple days between the final dungeons in the game, and or in the base
Oh,
game,
okay.
and that's not a thing they can actually do. Um, Post game extra content you can play after the last boss. Yeah, no, for exactly the same reason as 1A. You're talking about a considerable amount of time and effort and such that can be best spent doing something else. Keep the party members relevant to the story after their respective arc all the way to the end. Um, are they not? Because all the characters in every game that we've got so far, all the characters are important in some way, shape, or form as we go through. Less so with Persona 3. I'm going to much more so in Persona 5, Ryuji especially, because he's actually one of the very earliest ones that you can finish. And that bastard just will never shut up. He just won't. Not only that, his own personal desires seem to drive the group way too much. Let's see. And then going back to the example of Ryuji getting out of Shido's palace alive is Ryuji being fucking relevant. Alright, what do we got? Cut the repetitive dialogues. Persona 5 was really bad with this. Okay, repetitive dialogue back. The problem, of course, is that you don't. I'm not sure where you're talking about repetitive dialogue. Except, of course, mentioning the same subject twice in a sentence, which they do quite a lot of. Let's see. Tone down on having pervert party members. Citation fucking needed. As far as I can tell, they're all acting like fucking teenagers. That's just the way. That's the way they are.
Yeah. Well, you're not supposed to act like the way the way people naturally act. You're supposed to act the ideal way.
We don't do. See, you can't do that. You're talking about 16, 17-year-old boys and girls. You're not going to get what you're asking for. A couple of the girls are 18. So, no, you're not going to get this. There's no way you're going to get us. There's no way you're going to get a bunch of kids between the ages of 16 and 18 to not occasionally go pervert on us. It's just not possible. Not if you're trying to be realistic with yourself. Unless, of course, all of your boy people have no fucking testosterone. And that'll keep the girls in line because they won't want anything to do with the boy characters at that point. Let's see. Experiment with new elements such as roguelike features in the randomly generated side dungeons. You don't know what a roguelike is either. Okay. Mementos, Mementos Tartarus, and the various dungeons for party member in P4. They've all got that roguelike aspect because you're never going to get the same thing twice. You really aren't. Persona 4 had patterns that it liked. There are 3 of them. Yukiko Kanji and Rise. They all had different dungeon styles, and then they cycled through them after that. With Kanji's actually seeming to be the one that was preferred. And yeah, I know, right? More bill passing time. Ooh, Opal. Makoto is best mom, especially during Futaba's. Yeah. Let's see. What do we got? They don't have any idea what a roguelike is. They just don't. They can't. More substantial inter-party relationships like in P3 Portable. The problem, of course, is that Persona 4 and 5 included the entire primary cast as social links / confidants. The problem they didn't have that in Persona 3, but Persona 3 Portable they did make that change. They did actually manage to get it worked out on the female side. But you don't get nearly as many perspectives. You're just getting to know some of the people a little bit better. And of course P3P, P3PF we'll refer to it now, or P3F, which would probably be better. Makes large-scale changes to all or most of the women's social links. Rio and Kenji. That shit was hilarious. Let's see. What do we got? A shortcut option with its own rewards and challenges for dungeons. No. These dungeons are built the way the dungeons, especially the ones in For the palaces in Persona 5 were constructed the way they were for a reason and to make your life interesting. Why are you trying to bypass this? Not to mention, if you're not doing the work, you don't deserve the rewards. Let's see. An alternative way to access social links that are locked behind social stats. No, this has never been a thing. And in fact, you've still had that issue you had that same issue in P4 and P3. Although in the original Persona 3, they had a jealousy thing that was kind of really irritating. Let's see what else we got. This is just a general one. Don't wait till we get to combat. Actually, believe it or not, we might skip the combat one or come back to it. It's shorter, and we have a whole thing about what they want to do with social links. So, let's see, where are we at? More meaningful player choices result in branching storylines with their own endings. Okay, you've been playing one too many visual novels. You seem to like one too. You seem to have a real fondness for it. I kind of like the branching storyline options too, but there's a limit to what you can do with them, especially if you're dealing with games that are going to with games that are as large and as varied as Persona 5. You do get a little bit of branching in that you can pick who you're going to romance, but other than that, you're pretty well screwed. It's not the way the game was designed originally, and you can't go back and add it now. Not to mention the multiplication of work that would be required to do this,
and AKA cost, because geez, organizing the voice dialogues is not cheap.
Well,
I mean,
honestly, if you took 1A and combined it with this, you're talking about a fracking nightmare. Because every individual branching point requires all of the other events, and requires all of the events that came before it, and then eliminates it afterwards. So you can't refer to something that happened on a different timeline. If you've got this, and unfortunately, that's going to generate plot holes.
Yep, and animation costs too, because you got to animate all that shit. As you said, it's not a visual novel where you can just paint a pretty picture and slap it up there.
Yep. Years, especially depending on, and it would still depend on how widely varying the things are. Let me go with that, because that's, again, all you're doing is adding cost in time, cost in money, cost in resource, and every other resource possible. An option to skip dungeons in New Game Plus? No, absolutely fucking not. Don't you dare. Because then you could go into merciless mode and then not have to deal with anything. And you would still expect the fucking achievement. No, that's not the way this works. It's not the way this ever worked.
Yeah.
And it's not the way it will work into the future. No. Just no. Why bother at that? Why bother playing it at that point? New Game Plus is already easy enough when trying to put together all your social links, because by the time you get through with the first run, you should have all your social stats maxed out. And if you don't, you did something wrong. Okay? The dungeons are 90% of the gameplay for a Persona game, and they always have been.
Yeah. But you see, they just want to get the achievement easy, because you're not considering how much emotional work it is for them just to boot up the PlayStation.
Turn on your PlayStation. Achievement! No, that's not the way it works. Get good, scrub. That's my advice here. Okay. Categorize the item menu into different sections for better navigation. This has always been a thing in every fucking Persona game. All of them. all the way back from Persona 1 to Persona 5R. The left and right buttons while you're in the menu? Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, you're in your item list. Left and right. The L1, R1 buttons. Push them. You'll love it. You can also skip through parts of the list by using the right and left buttons on the D-pad. Make the main character more expressive. Either have a voiced main character, no, with their own personality, no, or keep the silent MP but make the dialogue choices much more meaningful. Definition. I demand a definition for this. Okay. Voice main character, probably not the best idea anyway. Here's the one that you were there. Here's this one. This next one here, however, is actually a retread of one we had earlier. A shorter tutorial, or at least a partially optional one. That's what Opal was asking for. And that's fine. I'm game for that. I am absolutely down with that.
They can't even be bloody bothered to read what they've written. Okay.
Written.
Explains what they wrote above.
All right.
Can't be bothered.
Make dungeon areas wider or running controls tighter. No. These Persona 5 especially is a stealth game. That's not what you're. It's a stealth game. If you're using the dash through the whole dungeon, you're doing it wrong, and you deserve everything you get. A toggle option for certain abilities gained by social links. This is actually a reference to the auto catch, to the auto kill, in Ryuji's social link initially. In the original game, because you don't get experience points for that. You just get a mask if you're going to get one. So yeah, that one I get. That shit actually annoyed the fuck out of me. It was once you got to Chariot 8, you were stuck with it. It might not have been 8. It might have been 7. I think it was actually Chariot 7. They removed that one actually for P5R, so I'm going to consider that one checked off.
Yeah.
Let's see. Story-based character development and ultimate personas like P3. Okay. When did this never happen? When did this not happen in 3, 4, or 5? And especially P5R and P4G. Let's see. Experiment with a game structure that's not so tied to the calendar. No, that is actually the calendar represents the basic game loop. Without it, you don't have a game.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Do X by Y date is getting a tad stale. Well, you know what? Sometimes people aren't available after a certain point. This is especially true for Counselor. In P5R. More unique dungeon dialogues. Well, yeah, okay. I get that to a point. I'm guessing that they're talking about the voiced bits, commentary and shit after a fight, or are there observations while they're wandering around in Mementos? Yeah, some of those get a little old after a while. It always has been with Ultimate Personas. Yeah, that's like Doom without guns. When has that not been a thing? Yeah, actually, I'll give you that. I'll give you that one too. It's actually pretty apt. Let's see.
Cryptos is good too.
And actually, we are now at the end of the first. We're now at the end of the first bit. I probably should have skipped the BAFTA thing and done that and actually written a fucking rant for that. Sigh. Well, looks like we may run a little long, folks.
Go. That's fine. Let's keep going.
All right. There we go. All right. So now we have
Combat.
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 This is the combat section. See, combat, battle system, and fusions. Change the current format of MC's death equals game over. Okay.
Ugh.
This is the one where if you are actually operating in safe mode, you don't have that problem at all.
Yeah.
Because you can just get your ass off the
Ugh.
floor again and with no changes to the fight. I try not to do that, obviously. Um, Streamline the fusion process, spending 30 minutes at a time in there. Yeah, well, you know what? Honestly, the fusion process is largely another part of the main game loop. If you're not fusing personas, really it's a question of how much time you want to spend in there. If you don't want to spend half an hour in there, then don't. Walk out. You may not have everything else you want, but you're not gonna go out. But you're not gonna go out. Um, Actually, here's the fun one for you. Persona 4 actually did something very similar to this. They're actually specifically talking about P5 here because there are no safe rooms in the other ones. Um, but if you look at the mechanics surrounding player death, you either go back to you can go back to your last save if you're in normal mode. If you're in easy mode, then you go back to the beginning of the floor. And if you're in really easy mode, you can pick yourself up. Um, this is pick yourself right up off the floor. This has been generically true. Period. Um, Although for Persona 3, it's actually limited. Your ability to do that is limited by a number of items you keep on your person. Rebalance the harder difficulties. No, just no. That's why they're harder. That's part of what makes them difficult. That's kind of the point. Add more elements to the game to keep the combat deep, fresh, and interesting. Physical attacks being categorized slash stealth slash strike pierce from Persona 3 and elements such as water and earth. Well, guess what? We actually do have an expanded roster in Persona 5 of elements. They added Psy as a counterpart to Nuke, which we didn't have. Actually, we didn't have either of them in Persona 4. Persona 3 had Persona, although we did have Nuke spells, Metadolian and such, and those are actually technically those are almighty. On water and earth, meh. Theoretically, we have those actually. Well, at least water in the form of ice.
Yeah.
Earth, not so much, but yeah. Okay, an option to have enemies scale with you. This didn't work very well in Final Fantasy VIII. I do, and it works even less well in Skyrim, in the Elder Scrolls. So, how about we not do that? Because all you're going to do there is just one of two things is going to happen if you do that. Either you're going to get people that will avoid as much combat as possible, so that the boss is still level 1, or you're going to wind up with, and certainly you're going to severely reduce the amount of grinding that's involved. Not necessarily a bad thing, but not necessarily the best thing either, since everything else depends on you actually being able to fight. Including getting to some treasures that you need for progression, so on and so on and so on and so forth. And this is true of all the Persona games, not just 5. There are cases where you're going to need items, and you're going to have to fight somebody to get them. The lusty left eye and the randy right eye, if we want to go with an example for Persona 3 or Persona 5.
The other, oh, sorry, I was going to say the other problem with that is this would make every battle feel the same. It would make it feel that you weren't gaining anything.
And that's why it didn't work for Final Fantasy VII, and it doesn't work very well for the Elder Scrolls. You're not getting any better because your
No.
enemies are matching up with you.
Mhm.
So no matter how powerful you are, you're still going to have the same problem with Arduin at level 150 that you had at level 1.
Yeah.
Let's see. Give party members skills the protagonist can't use. Okay. You provide me. You know what? Let's do this. Give me a list of shit that would be really cool for the protagonist for the other characters not to have. That would actually fit with that. That would fit within them, and then we can deny some of those maybe to the protagonist. If we want to do that, sure. We can give it a go. I doubt it'll go. Doubt it'll go over very well, but hey, you know what? That might at least be doable. It wouldn't cost, $20 million to do, and maybe you just get maybe it works. Maybe it works, and maybe it don't. That might be worth a shot. Uh, Give us the ability to manually select one or all valid skills on inheritance when fusing. P3P did this. P4 actually went that route, and so did Persona 5. So I have no idea what you're talking about. The only place you have to bitch about that in is Persona 3. Persona 3 and FES. You have you do actually have some limited selection ability in P3P. Persona 4 and 5 went and did that anyway, so check. And no, apparently they did. And if you're talking about Persona 5, no, they probably didn't. But the only place in which that is not true, and they're talking about the valid skills. The only place in question where that is not at, whereas that's not the only game we have wherein that's not particularly valid is Persona 3. Persona 2, Personas 1 and 2 were just kind of weird with the whole fusion thing. Actually, you didn't even really doing fusion in Persona 2 at all. You're building up a number of cards and getting a critter back. Let's see. Add harder difficulties to keep the game still challenging even after getting the ultimate personas. Dude, you didn't even play the fucking game.
The irony! I just posted that spray that sentiment just as you said it. I hit enter just as you said it.
Let me let me lay this out for you. Merciless mode is a free DLC. Get it. Love it. Get your ass kicked. Okay, add buffs and debuffs that affect more than just raw stats. Why? Buff status ailments to the point where what? Status effects, not status ailment. The character can specialize in them and still be good against bosses or regular enemies. I don't think you know how this works. And I do not think, and you keep using that word, I do not think it means what you think it means. Really. Optional combat challenges in areas like Monad and P3. Okay, you know what? Great. If you provide the money to do that for P4 and P5 and probably P6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, then we'll talk. And Monad and such, if I remember correctly, only actually appeared in P3 in Persona 3 FES. Let's see. Bring back Persona 3 spell fusions. Maybe if they feel like it. That's a thing they could theoretically do. It would take a little bit more work in the animation department, and a little bit of coding, but it probably would. It's not impossible. Put fusion calculators in the game. No. Well, actually,
No.
no, kinda, because
No.
Persona
No.
4 and 5 did actually have a version of that you could search. Actually, all three of them did. Personas 3, 4, and 5, you actually had the capacity to do a fusion search, and that's actually been a core part of the SMT series as well. It's always been a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you've seen the monster or have the components on you to fuse it, no, not if you've seen the monsters in a Persona game. You actually have to be able to put your hands. You actually have to have your hands on it. SMT4 gave you the option of, and so did Persona Q, actually, now that I think about it, gave you the option to fuse from the compendium, and in P5R you can do that, but generally speaking, you're still going to have to pay the same thing to do what you're going to do. So a result search is probably the best you're going to get, and we already have those. Show the exact turn order in the side or bottom of the screen. Problem, of course, with that is that we have not nearly enough real estate on the screen. It's not impossible to do, be kind of a pain, but screen real estate is going to be your big issue. I'm not going to say it's impossible to do because the Trail series has done it from the beginning. As a design decision, I could take that one or leave it. Skill affinity trait akin to SMT4 Apocalypse. No, that's actually not a thing that Persona's ever been designed to do. Add abilities to give you a chance to delay enemy turns. We call that sleep. We call that sleep, shock, and a number of other things.
Morons!
What?
Morons! Sorry, I couldn't resist. I couldn't contain that word.
You know what?
Morons!
We do actually have what they're asking for to a point. They're called status ailments, and certain status ailments will in fact delay their turn. There's your ability. Put the fuckers to sleep. Almost nothing in Persona 4 and 5 at least is immune to sleep. Some of them have resistance to it, but almost nothing is immune to sleep. That includes Fafnir, by the way, from Persona 5. Putting that damn thing to sleep or giving it a good shock, it saved my ass more than once, I'll tell you now. What else have we got? Okay, so that's actually it for the combat section. Yeah, I know. And do you know why we're doing this, Crypto? Because this needs to be addressed. The list itself is old. It's old as shit. But responding to it is a thing that is valid. At least I think so. There's actually an Imgur that has all three of these if you guys want to follow along. I forget exactly where it is. Funnily enough, I might actually have the list.
You know what? I don't think my statement is there. Barely anybody actually played this. They just watched some Twitch streamer.
Opal,
ailments because those ailments.
I can already tell you why none of them had played P5R. I can already tell you.
Oh, well, whatever.
And that's because this was written in April. It was actually written a couple of months before P5R came out.
Sorry, just was instinct to write P5R.
Most of them didn't play the overwhelming majority of Persona 5, to be certain. Okay, so down to the social simulation elements, confidence and social links. Okay, more consequences for your social link choices affect the main story as well as the social links. That would require a complete rewrite of all of the games in which those things appear. You'd have to rewrite them and put little branches in for things that, and put all kinds of little branches in for the things that were modified by those. I'm afraid you're going to be stuck with not being able to progress the social link fast enough. They had a jealousy system in Persona 3, the original edition of Persona 3, that if you get caught, if you're dating two girls at the same time and you haven't paid attention to one of them for a while, they'll get all pissy with you, and you have to go and grovel. Or if you've progressed beyond 3 with a girl before finishing up the prior one's social link, then you could theoretically have problems that way. That jealousy system is really kind of a pain in the ass, and it was one of the things that annoyed me the most about the original Persona 3. The other problem I have with Persona 3, obviously, is that you have no options as far as romance goes for the male protagonist. Dude is just flat out a fucking man whore. You had the option to do that, to be the man whore in Persona 4 and 5. At least with most of them. A Mormon version. No! 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 Yeah, there's the bad ending and the man whore option. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. More activities to do with your social links. You can actually do that in P4. Invite more than one person to go to a movie with you. As an example, I'm not sure how well that one works as an example. But you do have circumstances in which you can work with more than that, in which you can deal with more than one. Their little study sessions are brilliant. But actually being able to collect the gang together, parts of the gang together for study sessions, not necessarily a bad thing. We're good with that. Let's see what else we got. That one's not terrible, but it's really gonna fuck with your schedule. Let's see. Expand on the activities you can do inside and outside of schools, clubs, part-time jobs, etc. And you recommend that they have their own unique little mini games. Check, already done. P5R. As far as P4, you don't even have time for that shit, and you have to make time in P5, especially since Akechi went from just every time you encounter or sit and talk to him, his social link goes up, because you can miss the Justice link in P5, to a full blown thing in P5R. Let's see. Real repercussions for dating multiple characters at once and getting caught, rather than just a silly Valentine's Day scene. You know what? I kind of like it the way it is. The question, of course, is: are you going to get caught? And are the girls from your party going to talk amongst themselves? And do those girls know anything about any other female you've been in contact with? Okay, that's the jealousy system over again. And whilst yes, the Valentine's Day scenes are kind of a thing, we actually have something not completely dissimilar for New Year's Eve, or not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, in theory at least. The idea of Haru crushing a can and telling you that she doesn't want to talk to you very much right now, that entire thought was entertaining. Get all the girls and they gang up on you and beat your ass, and you get sympathy from Sojiro. Yeah. Mind you, once we can actually get back to the Persona 5 playthrough, we're going to do that, because I want to see that scene. I want to see that scene. let's see. What else we got? Option to romance social links that have the same gender as the main character. That would actually violate the main character, if I'm going to be honest with you. That's. Eh. I don't think that. I'm not so sure about how that would go over in Japan. Here you might get
Yeah.
away with it, at least to some degree. But in Japan, that's a completely different culture, and a completely different set of attitudes. You're going to have a hard time selling that. You really are. Um, not that they're necessarily entirely homophobic, but as an overall social more, it's frowned on. Um, Reduce the number of social links in advance automatically with no player input. Right. Actually, there are some of those social links we have to do that with, or your schedule's going to be fucked. There will be no way to get all of your social links done in the time allotted, even on New Game Plus. Allow social links to intertwine with each other, resulting in a unique relationship with social link characters. That's actually a story element, and to a large degree, that's been done pretty much across the board. Primary examples being Yukiko, Chie, and Yosuke from Persona 4. Ryuji and On from Persona 5, and Mitsuo and Hikari. Mitsuo, Hikari, and Junpei, Persona 3. So, yeah. No one crosses. Yeah, not even Ryuji. Let's see. Add more minor events in between the larger ones to improve the pacing of the game. Well, okay, now you have a suggestion for the thing you went for back in general. That's still not going to help you very much. And some of those get really old really quick. Better and more varied social links. Not every female character should be dateable, and not all the problems should be solved by the main character. Well, okay. First off, not every female character is dateable, I think, in any of the games in question. Especially not in particular. Let's talk about Nijima-san, the elder Nijima-san in Persona 5. You have no chance with that woman ever. There's not even an option. Okay. Let's see. A couple of others. There's the old lady in the bar, the Shiroku pub slash convenience store in Persona 4, as well as Risei's grandmother. You can't date Nanako in Persona 4. But that's mostly because she's fucking 6. There's a lot of that. And the Temperance area, I think her name is, from Persona 4 is also not dateable. She's married and she's willing to commit and maintain her marriage, but there you go. Let's see, more interactive dates. For example, the player could take their date to the batting cages and win a prize for them. I don't know. That's kind of an up to them thing. They probably did that the way they did it, strictly for the purposes of strictly for design purposes. That could get a little more complicated. Yes, that would be a MILF and GILF embargo. Let's see, what else we got? Rework the social link points. You try. Okay, that is actually once again primary game loop being fucked with. No. More in-depth side quests akin to the ones with Elizabeth and Theodore. Okay, fine. The fact of the matter is that in P4G and P5R, we got we got time-consuming little mini dates with the twins in P5R, which affects actually Lavenza afterwards. And just to add insult to injury, we got similar things. We actually had a whole social link called Aeon. That's right, Marie. In Persona 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your question? Right. Bring back the ability for the confidant to break the social link depending on your actions. And that is dating two girls at once and getting caught. Okay, if you want to make it a problem, I don't necessarily find a problem in doing the reverse the reverse arcana, but once again, you're actually going to have to look at design time and shit. And you are twigging specifically on the dating two girls at once thing and getting caught. In some of these games, you don't, and at least one of those games, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Every level of the social link should unlock something meaningful.
No.
No, just no, because some things take more effort than others, as is
Yeah.
stated clearly in strength for P5, and it's exactly the same in
Give me
P5R.
more stuff.
The more
Give me
powerful
more
the
stuff.
more powerful the option, the more you should have to work for it. Actually, Opal, the grass eaters aren't even necessarily MGTOWs. They just don't give a shit. To be a
Yeah,
MGTOW,
well,
you actually have to
yeah.
actively wish to issue. The average grass eater just gave up. He didn't even get through high
Yeah.
school and gave up.
Let's see, no. Grass breeder refers to not getting involved with other women. Sometimes strictly sticking to 2D waifus. Sometimes.
Let's see what else we got. Rework the calendar system so every activity needs their own set amount of time. Drinking coffee needs less time than studying. Well, considering that most of the time you wind up drinking coffee, you're drinking coffee while studying. So where's your problem? No, that's actually a thing that I I found that I always found kind of amusing. That you could run all over the city, and then run all over the city either in any time frame you want. Um, hours and hours of train rides all over the city, and then still have enough time to go on a date with Haru or Makoto or whatever. Regardless of regardless of the time of day. But if you walk in, but if you walk into the diner, you're out of luck. Or worse, if you go straight home, you're out of luck. Your daytime's shot. Okay, let's see. So no, much as that's actually not believable, the game again you're screwing with the game loop, and you could theoretically stack up a million little things and still have time for a big thing. So no, you'd actually have to separate it out by hours and minutes, and that means that all the time you spend on the train, they'd have to count that too. Make every day more meaningful by making all the stat gaining activities be viable options to gain points from. No, there's a reason, and there are plenty of reasons for that. Most notably, that the bulk of the social link, or both the bulk of the social stats, or at least the ones that aren't knowledge, will come from your social links, especially things like guts / courage, etc. Part-time jobs for proficiency, etc. More downtime / party bonding events outside of the main story. More events like P4, fewer events like P5. I'm going to reject this question for lack of clarity. Have the calendar show who you can hang out with on which days and have the ability to schedule plans in advance. You know what? If you're actually keeping track of time and taking notes, you don't have this problem at all. This is not an issue. The game doesn't need to do this. That's your homework to do. Designing social links with the idea of developing your relationships with the characters even after reaching max level. You can actually call up one. I believe you can actually contact one of your social links and take them out on a date. Pretty sure you can do that. I'm not sure about Persona 4 so much, but in Persona 5 you can do that, and you can certainly. Oh no, you can do that in Persona 4. You do that in Persona 4. Actually, 3, 4, and 5. You can do it for all of them. Except in Persona 4, you're taking them back to your room, especially the girls, and etc. Yeah, just I'm not going to go on with what I think happens there because because it's heavily implied. Let's see. Have the calendar show which activities will give a boost on what days. Why? Why do you need this? Because you can actually select any. You can select almost anything. Depending, and you have at least one activity that covers all of that shit. That are available if you want to take the time out of the schedule. They don't actually give a special boost beyond that. Unless you're talking about things like days ending in 7 at the 777 and P5. And really, that's just a question of paying attention what the last number is, because you get Nanami Shibuya tells you about that right up front. No more equip the right persona. You don't actually have to have the persona equipped to make it for it to work for you. You just have to have it in your inventory. So that's a non-issue. If you're talking about having it, if you're actually talking about having it in your inventory at the time, then you weren't paying attention to my little rant about reading Jung. Go do that now. No. I'll wait. You go read some Jung and then come back and see me. We'll talk about it then. More voice acting for social links. That's money. Not necessarily a problem. It's money and space. Because again, every time you want to add something like that, you're increasing the footprint of the game sum total. Let's see, and it looks like the last one here we've got more in-depth integration of romance akin to P3P. See, the problem you're having here is the same problem we were talking about up above, where you've got a bunch of little more branching stuff. It would be nice, but I don't think you really thought that one through completely. Yes, we're not talking about a lot in terms of space, but you're going to have to hire editors to do the little branchy things for every female that's available at that point in time in order to get where you're going with that. So yes, but it would be yes, that's possible, but you're talking about a shitload of fiddly work. And all they really had to do for Persona 3 Portable, you're talking specifically about the FEMC. They were already rewriting, so it wasn't more than a few extra minutes to for each instance to do the little branchy things and fuck off. But it does take the appropriate amount of space on a hard drive, or a disk. So, yes, kinda. It's not impossible, but it would have to be something that they were doing because they had to do a rewrite anyway, or they'd have to do it up front. Persona 6, we could theoretically see this happen for Persona 6. We're not going to see it going backwards. And whilst that's mildly unfortunate and would certainly increase your chances of getting caught, Um, yeah. Kawakami the Snark Queen. Yes. Time with your teacher. Time with your teacher in your room alone in Persona 5. Yeah, you can act. That's actually an invitation that you can make. Um. All right. That was actually kind of quick as far as the debunk goes. Um. My suggestion to the folks at ResetEra: get real, get good, read some Young, and try and make a game. You don't have to make a game, just try it. Okay?
But squirrel,
Get yourself
okay,
any engine, free, not free, what the hell ever, and then try and make a game. And once you
okay.
see
Now I
what
have
you're
to.
up against, then you come back and talk to me. Now, what is that, Sopel?
Now I was gonna say now I gotta make my little statement perfect lead into it. You see, squirrel, they can't make anything. They're incapable of making anything. Now, you see, they could prove me wrong by making a game, coming back here, and showing me how successful it is. But we all know they can't do that. So the best thing for them to do is to go on Twitter, find us, and cancel us to prove that they can't make anything because they can't do the other option.
Okay, Reset Era.
They can't do it at all.
One more thing, Reset Era. Try and cancel me. Go for it. I will not be canceled.
But you see, that's the only thing they can do. It's not like they could make a game and prove you wrong. Oh no.
I don't even necessarily want them to make a complete game. I want them to try and make a game. I want them to get far enough into it to realize what they're actually asking here. And then fine. We can all sit
But
down and have a listen. I will be more than happy to have that
but that
conversation with anyone coming. But
but, that would
but that's what I want them to do. I want them to put together at least
but
a demo of a game. Even if you even if you try and throw together a demo of Persona 5 in RPG Maker that incorporates at least one of the things that tries to incorporate at least one of the things from each of these images. Try it.
but that would
Let's do it.
yeah, but that would require them discovering that they are wrong. And we all know they just can't be wrong. I mean, it's them. They can't be wrong, squirrel. So how dare you ask them to do something that would actually show that they might be possibly wrong?
I'm not even suggesting that they're necessarily wrong all the way through. There are some things here that could actually be done.
Yeah.
That being said,
Yeah.
most of what probably about 90% of what they're asking for is either going to destroy the game, and it is actually going to destroy the game, or at least make it not what it is, or it's going to, um, or it's going to be so difficult that you're just going to cause more problems than you solve. Most of this shit would cost a horrifying amount of money. And we're talking
Yeah.
about people's time, people's patience, people's effort, the creativity
People
gap.
wanting to pay.
There is going to be something of a creativity gap. But most of all, you're talking about assets, you're talking about voice acting, you're talking about all these other things, and never mind the fucking marketing budget. So, is most of this possible? Not as such. Could some of it at least be done? Yes. Some of it can be done. Is it a good idea? Generally not. Especially if you're talking about a game that's already been completed. I want one dipshit over at ResetEra to answer this, and then try to make that game. Someone that, preferably someone that isn't already a developer. If you are already a developer, I'd love to see what you've done. I want to see it. Please bring it here. I want to see. I want this conversation. And if you don't want to have this conversation, you're still going to yell at me, then fine. The Streisand effect is a thing. Yeah, that conversation would be just pure. That would it just. Ooh, the salt will flow. And if you think you can take me, by all means, prove me wrong. I would love it. If you can prove me wrong and that all of this stuff is not only doable but doable in a reasonable manner, that won't just that won't either A, destroy the game, or B, make the game cost more than $250 million, then let's talk. I'm all ears. Please come get me. You want some? Come get it. I dare you. All right. Since we've actually managed to clear everything we had intended to, and I can now close
On
that.
time.
We actually managed to get this done on time, which is impressive. We'll break out the Pug Marine for right now.
Question is, did the people watching enjoy this?
Yeah, that proves to be the question, and from the chat, it looks like we got plenty of it.
Yeah. So we did start talking about interspecies reviewer, the most inclusive and the most diverse game ever that broke down race barriers that was canceled by the bigots at Funimation.
Yeah, I know, right? What was up with that? I mean, we even had the hermaphroditic one. Let me disconnect that real quick and reconnect it. Come on, reconnect. There we go. There we go. And was actually about sex, yeah. Because it really, interspecies review was never about more than that. I saw the 3 episodes that Funimation did make available before they cancel cultured it. Yeah, that's a thing. Alrighty then. So we've had our fun. Not only we have our fun, we started a hair late and we're ending right about on time. So yeah, don't get me started about The Last of Us 2. I've seen way more footage than I needed to. All right then. So, any comments from the peanut gallery? Either one. Hit me.
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
I said my little challenge because we all know they're not going to put any effort into actually trying to show us wrong in any degree, or even show us that the stuff they present is actually possible and is actually probable too. No. The only thing they can do is try and come after us by canceling us.
Well, you see,
and we'll know we're right.
But on the flip side, the challenge is out there. Someone may actually rise to it. We'll see. I'll be posting this. Yeah. I'll be posting this on Twitter and Parlay here shortly. I missed getting them in here initially, but that's okay. We'll get a bunch of hate watching after it. Because I'm going to actually tag ResetEra to make sure that they're aware that this asshole is here. I'd have to have a copy of the BLM game available on Steam, and honestly, if I tried hard enough and could get a countdown timer mod for XSplit, I wouldn't have to. So meh. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. You're just sitting there watching it for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. There's no game here. There's no nothing here. It just exists. And while yes, you can use it to make a political statement, which is what the developer did. As a game, it's just not. So is it worth a buck? No, it's not. We're all aware of how long 8 minutes and 49 seconds is, and I'd fire it up, walk away, and then come back at the end. You're not playing it. There's nothing to play. Therefore, not a game.
No,
That's my review.
it's a donation. It's a donation thingy.
Yep.
If you want to donate, go ahead, donate. But it's just a donation. There's not even enough there to laugh at, you know.
Well, on top of that, the whole thing's rather crass. So we're not going there. All right
No.
then. Crypto. Was I at least fair with this thing? Was I at least being fair with them? That's the question.
Well, while we wait for him to respond, I'll say I have. You know what? I have no. If the story fits the characters, I have no care about who or what the characters are, as long as they fit the story. Like I said earlier, you know, I mean, you do a story in the Bronx or some similar place or in an African country or whatever, I'm going to expect everybody to be black in there.
Well, not
If you
necessarily
wanna do-
everybody, because there's white people there too, in some of these
Yeah.
places too. I
Yeah.
just wouldn't expect very many. In
Yeah.
the same way that I wouldn't
Right.
expect black people in Poland in 1205.
Yeah. And if you want to do a story about, if you want to do a game about somebody in a wheelchair who's, you know, part of some event and changes some event, well, then I'm perfectly fine with my character being in a wheelchair. The thing is, it's got to match the story. You can't just put it in there just for their sake.
Yeah, shoehorning
Well,
shoehorning in the overweight, or excuse me, the body positive, heavy sarcasm, heavily sarcasm. Black woman in the legless black woman in the wheelchair with rickets. If you're just shoehorning somebody in there to do it, then what the hell are you? Why the hell did you bother? You just cost yourself a bunch of money for no reason. All right. glad to hear you found it entertaining. I had to find, honestly, part of the issue with this one, I had to kind of try and make up for the capture card dying. Please note that the capture card thing is up there. Streamlabs link at the bottom. I had the Stream Boss is still running, but I'm not actually showing it because I needed screen real estate. So as far as I'm concerned, we're done here. I'd like to think I treated these people fairly. We'll see what they think. All right then, folks. Between now and the next time we see you, be safe. Be sane.
And let's make games not only enjoyable but playable and affordable. Because they want to make I swear they want to make these games like $6,000 a pop.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Share this video in particular to all of your social media. Holy crap! I want the salt. Bring the salt. There will be some serious mining in a few days if we can actually get that done. All right, guys. Seizure.